for 82 games, we earned the 6th seed. We came here and earned home court advantage.
We're going to bring y'all into our huddle.
Today's Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014, and you are in the Warriors Huddle with me, Bram, and with me as always, my boy and producer, Scott.
Scott here.
Scotty, we're welcoming in Bay Area News Group beat writer for the Warriors for the first time, Diamond Leung. He does a phenomenal job today of talking about all the stories, all the storylines, all the various angles, ins and outs of games 1 and 2.
Yeah, he's been down in LA working hard, checking out the scene there, so definitely some really good insights provided by him.
I try to bait him into being just a straightforward Warrior fan. You guys will have to listen to see whether or not he takes the bait. Without further ado, here's Diamond. Scott and I are welcoming in Diamond Leung, a beat reporter for the Bay Area News Group for the Warriors. What's going on, Diamond?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me, Scott and Bram. Everything well on your end?
Well, I'm a little bit depressed after a 40-point mollywhopping last night, and I'm hoping that this discussion is going to make me a little bit more optimistic, but I'm hanging in there. Scotty, how are you?
About the same, although, you know, I'm from D.C. originally, so that Wizards stealing Game 1 in Chicago has got me fired up.
Diamond, we should have covered this in the pre-recording notes. It's your and I's responsibility to make sure that Scott does not bring up the Wizards at all during this. So when he says things like that, don't take the bait. You know, just go ahead and ignore it and try to come up with something Warriors-related in response to anything he throws out there.
Nice, we'll do. We look forward to the split hat at Oakland Arena sometime.
Fair enough. My understanding is you're just coming back from L.A., yeah? Have you been covering the series so far?
Yeah. I was there for games 1 and 2, and covering practice on both sides. So it's been a long week down there. Just kind of get to break down this series. It's been an interesting one so far, I think.
I know you've been writing for a while. How long have you been covering playoff series? Is this the first time you got to go and actually be there in person, or have you done it a bunch of times?
This is the first time I've covered NBA playoffs before. Having just started on the beat in January, so this is new to me as a sports writer. The whole NBA beat's really new to me in terms of getting to know that. But looking forward to. I actually got to cover one game at Oracle Arena, for one of the Nuggets games last year. But that was really tough to Draymond Green when I was covering the Michigan State beat. So
okay.
I got to experience that part of it, and I've seen the crowd really go nuts over what's in front of them. So, but this will be my first one covering the game for real.
When you're covering the playoffs as part of your job, do you have to kind of pretend like you've done it before and it's not a big deal, or is it kind of a eyed wide open, my God, what a phenomenal profession I have? Yeah,
no, a little bit of both. I mean, I think sports is sports ultimately. When you're covering what's in front of you, it's just part of my thing with loving this gig is just the emotion behind it. Whether it's whatever sport you're covering, you're looking for how it affects people, how it affects the people on the court, the people in the stands. You're looking for specks of emotion and moments to remember. And I think the playoffs are a time where those things really come out. A lot of times during the regular season, especially during sports like basketball, where it can be argued where there's just a few too many games in the regular season. People are often trying to downplay a big win or a big loss, and move on to the next one. We're here, it's every moment is under that microscope. So I think because the emotions are a little more played out, as you saw for sure during the last couple games, it's a lot more fun for us on the right side.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun for us on the fan side as well. I tell you what, man, there are a lot of angles to games 1 and 2, so let's jump in. First question I have for you is kind of a tough one, at least from my angle, and it's this. Which win do you think was more important as far as the ultimate outcome of this series? The Warriors stealing home court advantage in Game 1, or the Clippers putting a 40-point beatdown on the Warriors in Game 2?
I actually think Game 1. I think Game 2 you can kind of flush. Just says it wasn't a heartbreaker. It wasn't like you get your heart ripped out, and then you can't forget that one. Obviously, it was a strong showing by the Clippers in terms of okay, we're right in the series. Don't worry about us. Going away that easily. Come on now. we're not like that. And just a reminder that they have that hammer in Blake Griffin, and it was a strong message for sure. But I think for the Warriors to really maybe steal one in game one and surprise, I think, a lot of people in that game, and just to take home court advantage. Now you bring it back to Oracle, and it's anyone's ball game. Obviously they have some adjustments to make and plenty of issues to iron out, but that's why we play the games, and it should be really interesting, because I think now because of game one, you don't have that that real excuse that, hey, we're just overmatched, and no Andrew Bogut, we got no shot. This is going to be good basketball, I think, for however many games this goes.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I kind of feel that the Warriors lost the whole series in game two, in my opinion. I think that game one, with that win, they had the chance to come into game two and prove that game one was not an aberration. And I think the Clippers, with that 40-point just demolition, proved that they have the momentum going into the rest of the series. And I really think, hands down, they won it with game two.
And not surprisingly, Diamond, I agree with you. In fact, I feel really strongly that I like you a lot just after this first answer. To kind of echo what you said, man, I mean, to win this series, the Warriors needed to win one at Staples. They did. Put differently, the Clippers spent 82 games establishing a home court advantage, and the Warriors spent 4 quarters ripping it out of their hands in game one. I'm not happy about a 40-point loss. In fact, I am remarkably depressed. But I think that they got what they needed to get done out there. And I actually uncharacteristically did a little bit of research. According to what I found, the teams who win game one of an NBA series go on to win 71% of those series. So I'm feeling about as optimistic as you are, and I think we should both be happy that Scott didn't say anything about the Wizards in that last take. So we've got that, man. Here, let me ask you this. What do you think was the key to that game one victory? What was it that allowed the Warriors to pull out the victory?
A lot of it, I think, was just execution, and it was a lot of that interior passing that you saw off that Curry trap, something that they did not excel at for sure in game two. I think they were, if you remember, they were punched in the face at the start of the game for that one as well.
Yep, 12-1, right?
They responded, yeah, exactly, and they responded quite a bit differently. And that one, they started. I think the Clippers thought they were gonna run away again, and maybe end it right there. Let's stop the discussion. They don't got Bogut. Let's go out and clean their clocks. And It didn't happen. I think when it didn't happen, and they hung in there and they started getting really easy baskets, the Warriors started to believe, and they pulled it off. And I think game two, obviously, Scott believes that's what ended it. I think in some ways we all have to take a step back and maybe remember that the Clippers are the favorites. They had the better record, especially with Bogut out. They've got the better team. It's supposed to be. It's maybe not. The Warriors aren't supposed to lose by 40 every night, but the Warriors are supposed to lose these games. And I think if they can establish, similar to game one, if they can take that punch and keep on proving that they belong on that court and put that thought in the Clippers' minds, hang right in there, execute, it's going to be an even series. Now, it could very well go that way, where game two is what the Warriors are, which is a depleted team that's obviously definitely got some shortcomings because of some of those, because of the injuries to Bogut, because of a lot of roster deficiencies that make them not as good of a team as the Clippers. They don't have that Blake Griffin kind of guy to put them over the top. They have Stephen Curry, who's facing a lot of double teams right now that they're trying to figure out. And right now the Clippers are successful, extremely successful in getting the ball out of his hands,
right,
forcing someone else to beat them. But now I think the Warriors have to figure it all out.
Well, and I think that one word can kind of sum up, even though it's a remarkable oversimplification, the difference between game one and game two, and I'm hoping it doesn't bleed into game three, that word being composure. Just like you said, we got down 12-1 in game one, the Warriors showed composure. Steph couldn't score, the Warriors showed composure. We didn't have Bogut, the Warriors showed composure, and at the end of the day, they had a team victory and looked phenomenal. Game two is the exact opposite. They jumped all over us. We lost composure, and what started off as momentum became a speeding train. Next thing we know, our starters are sitting on the game. People like Hedo Turkoglu are ending up with big shots and heat checks, and it fell apart. And I'm hoping that Jackson has the mind and the spirit of the team ready to go, where we just erase that, get back to a portion where we realize, we can answer any punch and not fall apart, and so I guess we'll find out.
So I mean, Diamond, what would you have improved if there was one thing you could have improved for game two that the Warriors should have done better?
I think simply just maybe understood the emotions of the game a little more. They seem to get very frustrated after something didn't go their way, and but at the end of the day, it just came down to execution. I think David Lee said it best. Nobody won their matchup.
Right.
There was nobody that stepped up and said, what, I'm taking my guy, and this is going to be my day. The starters did not play well, and then the Clippers bench basically came into the game and ended the conversation when they started draining shots left and right. At that point, you're like, when Hedo Turkoglu was hitting threes, you're like, okay, well, this one is pretty much done.
Honestly, that's exactly right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and to leave that kind of, to let that kind of train, as you describe it, keep going on through. I mean, it was over right there.
I can't think of something more frustrating than watching people like Danny Granger and Hedo Turkoglu hit those shots on us. If the Clippers had put in a dog and that dog had put those shots up, I think I would have been less disheartened by their success than watching those two guys put it up. Here's a random question for you. I think it was Bill Simmons. I'm not positive, but I know that a noted journalist leading into the series said that this Bogutless Warrior team would actually be better off if they were coached by Don Nelson as opposed to Mark Jackson. What do you think about that? Do you agree with it? Is it ridiculous?
I mean, quite possibly, but that's quite hypothetical as well. You're talking about a huge, late season adjustment. Even though Mark Jackson's saying, we're going to plug Jermaine O'Neal right in, and nothing's really going to change scheme-wise. Well, obviously, it's partially true, but maybe if you have a full season over time, Nelly's got a way of figuring out that roster. But I mean, in the current time, I think Mark Jackson, as he showed in Game One, still has that ability to inspire his roster to overcome a certain amount of odds. And he talked about it. You can, if you're on the analytics side, you can roll your eyes about all that rah stuff. But I mean, those guys played for him that night, and they grinded out that win.
So where do you think Jackson's job stands at this point? Because you had an article where Iguodala talked about how the team is now playing for Jackson's job, not just to win this series, and how there's been people at ESPN like Jeff Van Gundy have come out in strong support of Jackson. 2 games into this series, any further insights into where Jackson's job security is?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty much like a wait and see. On the ownership side, that obviously for your followers out there who follow every day, they know that Joe Lacob hasn't said too much about it, and when your owner hasn't said too much of anything about it and won't offer support other than to refer to another general statement of support, you're kind of put out there, and it's the same as it was, I think, and it's a show me kind of thing, and let's see where it's at the end of the season. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe it does come down to the emotions of this series after it plays out, and then you go and evaluate, and then you see, okay, well, did we lose this series? And could we have gotten better because of a coaching reason?
Right. Because
could there have things been done?
I think it's going to come down to whether or not Jackson can adapt during this series. And I don't see him as a coach who's going to be able to adapt. He seems to me, and tell me what you think about this, as the type of guy who has his game plan. He's basically run with that same game plan for 82 games. He's not going to change that now. And so instead of watching film on Sunday, he's giving an Easter sermon.
I think we're, regarding that, we'll see which method bears out. I mean, I think, Jackson said on the radio the other day, he's not a guy who's going to lose a lot of sleep, in terms of trying to figure out things that he says he already knows regarding the Clippers. He's gonna have he's gonna have what he has in mind regarding his style of play built in already. It's what's worked for him. Supreme confidence to build supreme confidence in his players, to help have them understand that, hey, this isn't this isn't a life or death thing. We've got like you mentioned the Easter thing. There's things that are higher up on the plate. At the same time, does that make them a basketball team that doesn't care? Absolutely not.
Right.
And we've seen things work out as well. We've seen Mark Jackson also make adjustments that have worked, even though sometimes those often haven't been pointed out as heavily. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, that's what makes this so intriguing. There's a lot on the line in this series, a lot of things to be proven, a lot of storylines playing out right, based off of what shows up on the scoreboard, at night, at the end of the game. So it's really interesting to see, and I think a lot of it, we can kind of sit here and talk and make judgments about what's going to happen. That's part of the fun of it.
Sure. I mean, that's part of being a fan. And, I mean, it's worth noting, and you basically just did, that he did make a bunch of adjustments in the Denver series last year. I mean, we've seen his ability to kind of coach on the fly. I listened to that interview you were talking about where they talked about coaches who basically get zero sleep during the playoffs because you got to prepare nonstop. And he said, I'm not going to be one of those guys. I get a good amount of sleep, and I'm not going to go old and gray going forward. From a fan's perspective, I don't want to hear that. Even if it doesn't help you to put in extra preparation, it certainly can hurt. I want to hear these guys putting in, the midnight oil. From a more objective perspective on your side, how'd you take that quote? Is it nothing? Is it just throwaway, or did it bother you at all?
I think there was a little bit. I don't know about the bothering me. Honestly, I don't really care one way or the other. But I thought it was an interesting quote that kind of reveals a lot about where Mark Jackson is at in terms of in terms of being a coach. It says a lot about him. And I think the line about I'm not going to turn old and gray is kind of like part of his persona, where half of that is a joking kind of thing, but the other half I think is very, very genuine in terms of Mark Jackson is going to do this coaching job his way, and sometimes he doesn't care how it looks to the outsider. Mark Jackson's coaching style is unique. He's not, like he said, he's not going to be that guy that's in the film room pouring over stuff. He relies on, and he said earlier in the series, he relies on feel. He relies on building confidence in his guys, and like, for instance, like he's not gonna sit there, or he's not gonna call timeouts and berate his guys, so that people can, oh wow, he's really getting into the team. This is
right.
Mark Jackson. He's giving them a wake up. Now you can argue, hey, maybe they need that wake up call. Maybe that is absolutely what calls for. But Mark Jackson is a principled guy who says that is not my philosophy, and that's what the Warriors have right now. Mark Jackson's philosophy stays, and I think you ride or die with that as it currently is.
So, I mean, if you're an assistant coach, though, what adjustments do you tell Jackson to make? Do you throw more double teams at Blake Griffin? How do you get Steph Curry involved in the offense, and how do you deal with the double teams being thrown at him? Do you tell him, please get one technical foul in your entire life as a coach? Because maybe that could be used as a strategy.
Wait, are there any assistant coaches left on the Warriors right now? I thought they've all been kicked off. Go ahead, Diamond. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, well, right now there's two of them that are on the court that help out during the proceedings. They have a third on the bench, and they can. And you know what? All of them should right now probably be saying we've got to do something about Blake Griffin. Foul trouble is not going to be the answer long term in terms of keeping him off the court, and to map that out is if they can get that done, I mean that's not going to be easy, because we've seen the Warriors be in foul trouble on 2 consecutive nights now. I mean, Draymond Green got eaten up last night. His fouls went by pretty quickly, even though he didn't foul out.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a tall task. Just losing that big man is just an absolute killer on their end. I mean, then you're starting, then you've got to throw in Hilton Armstrong, in some situations, and it's a tough task, to achieve to stop Blake. And in game 1, they got by with David Lee playing him straight up. David Lee, was able to do something to neutralize him. So it's going to be a difficult task.
It's remarkable how much I miss Bogut, just from a fan's perspective, not only because of his ability to force Blake away from the basket and make him take 18-footers instead of 2-foot, easy lay-ins, but also just the toughness angle. There was that play in game 1 where Matt Barnes basically threw Steph to the floor, looked down on him, stepped over him, and all I could think was there's no way this happens if Bogut was there, or if it did, we'd have some kind of satisfying retribution. So it just sucks not to have that kind of emotional leader out there,
Right. It's a different feel to the Warriors right now. They're obviously a lot smaller. They've got Draymond Green bringing some fire. They've got Jermaine O'Neal doing what he can, with every ounce of whatever he has left, and that might not be enough. We'll find out. But right now they're at an extreme disadvantage down there. If Blake Griffin can keep on doing what he's doing, after game 2, it could be a short series.
Let me get your objective opinion on something. From my non-objective eyes, the officiating has been nothing short of horrific. Steph Curry is a starting all-star in this league. Because of that, I think that he's earned the refs' respect, and last night, at least through 2.5 quarters, he's getting thrown to the ground and no calls at all. In fact, it got him fired up uncharacteristically. He throws his mouthpiece into the stands and gets a technical. Speaking from an objective standpoint, how would you grade the officiating so far?
And I'll tell you this, maybe my answer won't be a good one, but speaking from an extremely objective point of view, I've actually somehow managed to completely, unless it just has a tremendous impact on the game, block out all the officiating.
Oh, right when I liked you, Diamond.
Yeah, no. It's a foul in my book. I mark it down. I don't pay attention to boos or the cheers. And I'm like, all right, moving on. I don't have it in me to analyze that portion of the game unless it's absolutely egregious and you see something on tape where it's really bad. In the playoffs, I'll give you this. It's a different feel because it does impact the emotional swings, I think, of the games. And last night you could see it. I mean, Steph was getting frustrated, did what he had to do to kind of get himself fired up and then try to get the team fired up. Too little, too late at that point. But I think if either side is playing to the refs and doing this and that, we've already lost at that point.
Have you ever seen? Have you ever seen a team more than the Clippers play to the referees? Like they seem to. Almost every single play, they try to involve the official to the point where they are forcing the official to either make a call in which impacts the game or to not call the foul, and then they get all pissy about it.
They flop. They act like they were shot in the face on most calls. That no call on the end of game 1 that the NBA ultimately came out and said, okay, it was a foul on Chris Paul. Chris Paul acted like there was a sniper in the stands. But I don't want to take away from Scott's question. What do you think? I mean, are these guys playing up? Do they seem like floppers to you? And that being the Clippers.
Again, it's not something I really watch for. It really isn't. And, if obviously, look, we know the Clippers style. We know how much they're going to, as you said, they do a lot of lobbying. But is it any more? It's not something I've personally noticed, honestly. Maybe it's not because I'm not looking for it as much.
Sure.
I'm not like, oh, there goes CP3 again. It's not in me to keep, and maybe it's something where, you kind of have to take a step back, and if you keep looking for it, well, it's always going to be there. I don't know. Obviously, the Warriors don't do it as much.
Right.
That I know. But it's nothing where I can say, well, they're at the top of the league in terms of, lobbying and flopping. It's not something for me to say, and frankly, I've covered, this stuff since January.
Sure.
So it's not something like I've been around the league okay, and these guys are right up there. I can't really answer that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I have not covered the league at all, have not been able to go to any opposing arenas, have not spoken to anyone in the know, and I can still say without question that I feel these guys are the biggest floppers I've seen in my short and not illustrious career. How about this? There's a whole bunch of media attention on the idea that Blake threw a glass of water on a Warrior fan. In fact, we had the pleasure of welcoming that Warrior fan on the podcast today. You know what play I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what do you think? Do you think Blake did it on purpose?
Again, like I can't get into his
Oh,
mind.
come on, Diamond. You can give me this one. You saw that one.
He said he didn't do it. I didn't see it happen. I saw it on replay. He said he didn't do it. I don't know Blake well enough to know whether or not he has that kind of cheeky persona. Like, I don't know.
Sure.
I could see it from both ways. I'll tell you that. I can see how both would add up for sure.
Well,
but honestly, no, I did look at that. I did analyze that, and I was like, without knowing like too much about him, I was like, it could go either way. And I wouldn't be surprised if either were to. But yeah, again, he says he didn't. A lot of people in LA doubt that, and that's where I don't know.
Right. I mean, you had an article recently where you quoted him, what he said after that, him being Blake. And what Blake said, first he said, yeah, I didn't do it on purpose. Then he said it was only half a cup. Then he said, it's just water. And I felt like those last two, with him hedging against it, if someone accuses me of throwing something on him, I ended at, no, I didn't throw it. I don't go into, well, it was just a pen or it was just a paperclip. You know what I mean? You said that you went to a game last year, principally because of Draymond Green, but you did get a chance to experience Oracle. How does Staples, at least as far as when they're filled with Clipper fans, compare? I mean, as far as the home court advantage, did you feel as it was just as good in LA as it is in Oakland?
Staples is, and maybe I don't know the dimensions. I'm not an arenas guy, but Staples feels a lot bigger. So it's loud for sure, and a lot of that just maybe has to do with where I'm sitting. Like we're sitting, at least where I am, like kind of on the corner. Like in one of the corners opposite of one of the tunnels. So we're right there on the floor, and it does. I wouldn't say it's deafening, but it's loud. I mean, if the Clippers are on the run, it's there. You feel like the world is against you if you're worried. You're feeling all that stuff. It's not Oracle because it's not that crazy raucous,
right?
College style atmosphere where every basket is life or death. But I think that's no diss on Staples. I think that's just a credit to what the Warriors have built at Oracle.
Sure. Well, and at least the
long-suffering fan base that just continues to let out their however many years of frustration on in these moments, and I think that's what makes it fun.
And at least we were willing to put on the shirts they lay out for us. I mean, I was ready. Game 2 is even worse, but it looked like 30% of Clipper fans had those red shirts and decided just not to put them on, which bothered me, but it's not an important topic. We certainly don't need to chase it down.
I mean, the Warriors have been not too great at home this year. Do you think Oracle still gives them a big home court advantage in these next two games?
I think yes, but go ahead, Dom.
I was thinking I was thinking about that the other day, and I was thinking for the playoffs, it's different. Because the Warriors have talked about, for this team, maybe we have some distractions just being at home and, doing the home life and, and that kind of thing. So for the playoffs, everybody's lost in. That also means the Clippers are lost in there, of course. But I think, it does provide, a tremendous advantage to be at home. I can see that for sure making a difference.
Sure.
So before the series started, what was your prediction on the outcome?
I was thinking Clippers in 5. I thought the Clippers would come out and run right over them, and maybe it was closer to what happened last night. I was expecting that kind of game for maybe game 1, and maybe less of a blowout. But the Warriors, had to me had that surprising game 1 win, and now, in some ways you throw out that idea that they can't compete with these guys.
So what's your call now? After watching them play 2 times in person and getting to know this team since January, what do you think? What's the series outcome?
I think they go down in 6. I think,
Who goes down in 6?
Yeah. I think the Warriors go down in 6.
All right, I take it back, Diamond. We are no longer friends.
Diamond, that was my prediction. So I am in complete agreement with you.
And just to finish out your playoff picture, how about the finals? Who are the Western and Eastern Conference teams?
Oh, that'll be interesting. I'm going to go with probably Miami, same as it ever was.
Yeah.
And I got to go San Antonio. I got, you know, they're the best, and you know they showed it, you know, the other night as well. You know, just finding ways to win. You know, it's such an advantage that they have with the trust that those guys have between each other. You know, being able to see it up close now and see what that's all about. So you know, there is a difference, and I think you know the Warriors aren't quite at that level yet, and you know we'll see you know how they can you know make up that gap. You know, because there is one, and you know it should be interesting to see how they get over that hump, you know, whatever that is. And I think series like these are what are part of that process that you know Mark Jackson constantly talks about.
Sure. I mean, you learn through every series. And then who wins that finals rematch, just to finish out the predictions, Miami or San Antonio?
I'll give it to the Spurs. You know, I really like their makeup. You know, this year I think Miami's they're maybe a half step for what they once were, you know, and you know I think that'll probably do a lot of storylines as well for you know for Miami's future, you know, put a nice little bow on San Antonio thing. Maybe that's just you know wishful thinking.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can kind of see that happening. You know, just the fundamentals winning, you know, in that war.
I got the same finals teams. I think that Miami's going to take it. I hope that you're right, and it's from a very selfish Warrior perspective, because I think if San Antonio wins, they ride off into the sunset. I think Tim Duncan leaves. You know, they probably won't re-sign Manu, and that puts us in a much better position in the West. Hey, Diamond, thank you so much for doing this with us, man. I can only imagine how busy you are, generally speaking. To give us some of your time during the playoffs is remarkably nice of you, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me on. Had a lot of fun, and feel free to reach out to me anytime. Happy to help.
We will definitely reach out again. Thanks again, man. All right, that was a lot of fun, man. Hopefully, we'll have just as much fun in Game 3 on Thursday. I guess we'll find out. Until our next episode, please remember that we can be found on Twitter at Warriors Huddle. Our email is warriorshuddle@gmail.com. Our website is warriorsworld.net. And we're on a ton of podcasting services, including iTunes, where if you wouldn't mind, we'd really appreciate it. Hop on there, subscribe to us, and drop a review. That would be exceptionally helpful. Until then, go Warriors, F the Clippers, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Good.